Well, a good Wednesday to you. August the 28th, also known as my birthday. I'm glad you're joining in here with Forecasting with Friends. I'm meteorologist John Dawson. What I could really use right about now is a Tom Ziska. If you've ever watched on the weekends with Tom Ziska and I, he has a Facebook Live that he has kind of behind the scenes in the background. The entire newscast, he's doing a Facebook Live. And when it's ever somebody's birthday in the Facebook Live crowd who's there, he will sing happy birthday to the person during a commercial break. It's quite the festive occasion on the weekends. If you get a chance and you're watching, you don't even really have to be watching the newscast. But if you get an opportunity over the weekends when we're doing Fox 26 News, and sometimes we've got sporting events, so we're not always on at exactly 5 and 9, but that's the idea most of the time. If you ever get a chance, make sure you watch, and it's kind of like I've often thought, I wonder if anybody, how at a restaurant you go there and you're like, hey, it's my birthday, can I get the free cake? And they bring out the singing and the dancing. I wonder if any of our Facebook Live crowd has ever just said it was their birthday when it wasn't, just so they could get Tom Ziska to sing happy birthday to them on the Facebook Live. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that's always a fun opportunity when you get a chance to join us on the weekends with Tom and I. I do want to start here with our Wednesday quick look at what's happening weather-wise out there. We'll check in with our graphics, and that we'll see overall this pattern that we started on Monday, where just less stable air, kind of moisture coming in off of the Gulf. That's still in place. You can kind of see that with the majority of the rain right now sitting off of the Gulf Coast, but we do expect that to continue to sort of slowly spread a little further inland. Getting rid of that satellite cloud imagery would just focus on the rain with our radar. You can see that we are looking pretty clear at the moment across southeast Texas. Our temperatures are going to be trying to warm up. If you get a few clouds, that's going to keep things a bit cooler. We see only 82 right now up in Huntsville, as well as Cold Spring. Tomball at 81. We get a little further into downtown and we can warm up to about 87 degrees at both the downtown area as well as Pearland. And as we talked about, most of that rain sort of continuing to sort of stay over to the east, the heavier downpours out in the Gulf, but Beaumont, Port Arthur, definitely seeing some of that rain at this point slowly kind of moving in across the area. If we look at rainfall expectations for the next basically week, about 5 days, you can see that that's going to add up. Some of those numbers, that's in the 5 to 10 inch range. Now, the good news is we still, for the most part, are expecting this to kind of be spread out over time. And we're not overly concerned at the moment, at least with some flooding issues. Now, if some spots begin to pile up a lot of rain, then I'm sure we'll have to get a little bit more focused on that. But as this unfolds, we are looking just sort of at a steady rounds of rain. And the plan is, we're hopeful that these rounds will continue to have enough breaks between them that the flooding is not going to be an issue. We did have a few stronger storms sort of popping up across the area yesterday with some gusty winds, definitely some lightning and some thunder. So let's be safe, though. We're not going to just run out and play in this rain, but we want to make sure that, at this point, it's not something that we need to take action on as far as trying to be safe, where we just want you to do the normal everyday kind of southeast Texas end of August sorts of behavior. All right, now for some of you, if you're down kind of along the Ship Channel, or you're in the Pasadena, LaPorte, Deer Park area, probably even over into Baytown, you are definitely aware that for the last several days there's been quite a bit of flaring, those sizable flames that you see burning in the sky. That's going to be because some of our plants are having to do a little bit more flaring than usual. Now, on Monday, the Shell Deer Park chemical plant, they put out an emergency alert saying that in part that the flaring continues at the facility, and they expect it to continue, but they should decrease that flame size and the visibility kind of as we move through the week. So it was higher earlier, and it's going to kind of to move through. They say it's because of a third-party steam reliability issue. Now, a reminder, of course, for those of you who aren't aware, that flaring is usually mean that something's happening, but it's also a safety issue. It's helping protect those industrial sites and, of course, the surrounding communities by burning that gas off in a very controlled manner. So sometimes it looks a little crazy, but it is controlled. And earlier in the week, we could see that same sort of activity happening at the TPC chemical plants. And some of the neighbors started reporting the smell of some very rotten eggs, and I think that kind of goes along with it. And while the company says there was no threat to the community, a representative from the Air Alliance Houston says they think that the state does need to get involved.
We are asking for them to, for our legislators to rein in some of these pesky polluters, as we call them, for their lack of preparedness. We're deeply concerned, and despite them saying that this industrial flaring is not harmful, we don't know the extent of the toxins that they are emitting in the air on a constant basis.
All right, so we'll continue to keep a track of that story and, make sure that that monitoring is appropriate and see if there's anything else to report as we move through the week, as it's expected that flaring is going to continue. Now, keeping on the subject of the sky, but a little bit bigger picture, while you were sleeping last night, NASA found 6 new planets. Scientists using the James Webb Telescope, which is that powerful telescope they put in a few years ago, discovered these rogue worlds. But unlike the Earth, none of these planets orbit a star. They say each one of these wandering planets is between 5 and 10 times the size of Jupiter. And they may have formed like stars. Scientists say they could shed light on how planets come to existence. All right, the historic Polaris Dawn mission will have to wait a few days. It was originally scheduled for Tuesday morning, then this morning, but SpaceX has pushed it back to Friday at the earliest due to a potential helium leak. Oh, that sounds familiar. Haven't we been hearing about some helium leaks? This is a crewed mission from SpaceX. It is also the first flight designed to take trained civilians on a spacewalk. So again, that's what's really going to set it apart, is the fact that civilians will be going on a spacewalk. All right, back here closer to home, want to let you know that cases of the West Nile virus, which of course is that mosquito-borne illness, are spiking across the country. The mosquitoes feed on affected birds and then they bite the humans. Now, more than 30 states have been affected so far. Parts of Massachusetts as well as has issued curfews in public parts for the fear of the West Nile and other mosquito-borne illnesses. The CDC reports 216 cases in the U.S. this year. Only 20% of those infected develop symptoms like fever, fatigue, and in some cases that can even lead to death.
Fortunately, thousands of people will be infected. They'll get severe disease. We know these things, unfortunately, but we can't necessarily say from one year to the next which place is going to have the most intense transmission season.
A New Hampshire resident died yesterday. That's the first person in 10 years to die from the Eastern equine encephalitis, which is another mosquito-borne illness. Now, as the summer winds down, millions of Americans will be headed out for one more vacation. Do you have something planned this weekend? Well, TSA is expecting that the Labor Day holiday is to bring records. Here is Fox's Chris Foster with more.
It's expected to be the busiest Labor Day travel weekend on record. Millions of folks hitting the rails, roads, and skies for one last summer vacation. According to AAA, most Americans will be staying in the U.S., with domestic travel up 9% from last year. Seattle tops the list for most popular destinations, followed by Orlando, Anchorage, New York City, and Boston.
The cost to travel internationally over Labor Day is up 11%, and that means that overall bookings are down a little bit because it's a little bit more expensive.
At the airport, TSA is preparing to screen more than 17 million people between Thursday and next Wednesday. The agency says it expects to meet wait time standards for security screenings, but recommends people take advantage of programs such as TSA PreCheck to save time.
Think of those big, maybe a school trip or something like that. It's very convenient and it gives travelers a lot of peace of mind.
And for the millions of Americans expected to drive, they'll find relief at the pump with the national gas average floating around $3.50 a gallon in recent weeks compared to $3.81 last Labor Day weekend.
The one thing we watch this time of year is for any potential storm. So a hurricane or a tropical storm that affects the Gulf could affect refineries and could bring gas prices up, but right now we're not seeing that.
Friday is expected to be the peak travel day. TSA is bracing for nearly 3 million people to pass through checkpoints. In New York, Chris Foster, Fox News.
All right, so instead of just the topic of traveling, how about just commuting? You know, as we get closer to the holiday, the traffic gets more and more. But can you imagine, instead of sitting in traffic, if we could just soar overhead in an air taxi? It could actually be a reality sooner than you think if you're in Los Angeles. Here's what used to be Fox 26, but now Fox Los Angeles' Matthew Seedorf.
Flying cars now one step closer to taking off.
The average person in Los Angeles spends about 100 hours a year in traffic, and we're really looking to change that.
Archer Aviation's Miles Rogers meeting Fox 11 at Santa Monica Airport Tuesday, or what they call a future vertiport. Is this going to be pretty reasonable for customers to pay?
Yes, we're really looking at making this accessible to everybody. And so what may start as sort of rideshare pricing, we're really looking to open up the skies for everybody and not just for the elite few who want to fly over traffic.
As soon as 2026, this is how airspace could look above LA. Flights from Orange County to USC, Long Beach to SoFi Stadium, and LAX to Woodland Hills. Trips they can make in 10 or 20 minutes. Commutes that right now can cost drivers hours in traffic.
Flying over the 405 or flying over the 10, there's no better feeling. You'll be able to fly from Santa Monica to a Trojans game, or from Santa Monica to a Rams game, or Orange County to a Rams game.
These air taxis include a pilot, can carry up to 4 passengers, and travel 150 miles per hour. They're also said to be about 100 times quieter than a helicopter.
The aircraft is sustainable. It plugs in like a Tesla. It takes off vertically like a helicopter and flies forward on a wing like an airplane.
Archer has already announced partnerships with United and Southwest Airlines, while their competitor Joby Aviation is working with Delta.
We are hard at work with the FAA at certifying our aircraft and getting ready for commercial service.
Air taxis possibly ready to fly over LA traffic during the upcoming 2028 Olympics.
Select a ride, so selecting an Uber, you can select the Joby and be able to fly over the traffic instead of having to sit in it and slog through it.
Fox 26 is.
All right, the number of deaths related to Hurricane Beryl has risen after 2 more people were added to the list. The death toll is now officially at 38, and of course, many of those were not directly caused by the storm when it made landfall, but were the result of infrastructure issues, mainly the loss of power. So residents died. They lived in Harris County, Fort Bend County, Galveston, Montgomery, as well as Matagorda County. And what I wanted to kind of continue sort of sharing with you on that thought is that I know at least 2 of the deaths, and they were in Harris County, were carbon monoxide related or poisoning because of generators that weren't used properly and safely. And so I wanted to show you a product on a hurricane gear test, and it's airing this week. If you get a chance to look that up, you can do that. So it has a few more specifics and details for you on that. But what I wanted to share with you as a part of that is that in the state of Texas, in the days after Beryl made landfall, nearly 400 people went to the ER. So that's actually people that went and sought medical attention. So there's probably even more happening, but nearly 400 people went to the ER because of carbon monoxide poisoning. So this is a problem that continually happens after tropical systems make landfalls or just devastating weather events in general, loss of power. And I just really want to stress the safety that needs to go in with these generators. And you know, these can literally be life-saving devices, but they can also be devices that take lives if they're not used properly. So I always stress, anytime I've got the opportunity to talk about a generator and your hurricane preparedness, I always stress over and over again, make sure you know how to use it. And the number one thing is you have to get it away from your house. It cannot be in the garage, even if the garage door is open. It cannot even be under a porch, because that carbon monoxide can come up into your house and into the attic and then come back down into the house. So you've got to, and you can't keep it by the side of your house because it can still come into the eaves underneath your roof line there. So you've got to get this away from your house. But the problem is, if you get it away out in your yard like it should be, how do you protect it? Because if it starts to rain, the generator is not going to function very well if you just douse it with a bunch of water. So the product that I'm going to show you today is called Gen Tent. And basically, it's a tent for your generator, Gen Tent. And I've always said for a long time, if I had an umbrella that would work for my generator, that's what I need. And this is the case that actually is going to be doing that. So I'm going to kind of dive in and show you everything. I've got the generator here. Now I want to point out, and I didn't know it clearly says right here, this is an open frame inverter. So most of the inverter generators are going to be smaller in size, and they're going to have this frame, covered. It's going to be wrapped up. Now, Gen Tent does make a mounting system for your generator if it does not have this open frame. So keep that in mind, that you could even look into this if you don't have an open frame like this. But this open frame, it does make it easier, and it's also a little bit simpler to show. But basically what happens, you see these mounts, right? This has been added to the frame, and I want to show you that it doesn't even really take any tools. I'm going to go ahead and take this one off because it's really accessible. It's easy to show. But you just got a bolt with a little twist nut that goes on the end. And what you'll do is on these frames like this, you're going to simply take these. I'm going to take this off to show you. It has like a little rubber gasket on it here that goes around the frame itself. And then this plastic clamp that goes on with it. It's adjustable. It has a length that it comes out, and I'll adjust that here in a minute, but this will extend out to a certain distance, and I've kind of preset some of these already. But let me show you again kind of what we're doing here. We're going to put this on, and then you slip the clamp over it. Now the part that is actually pretty important that I forgot to demonstrate here for you, you need to make sure that these are equal height. The height of that one needs to be the same with this one over here. So I'm going to show you what they even do to kind of make that simpler. I didn't think about it as far as my demonstration here for you, but we're going to Going to tighten that up, and all you got to do is tighten this on there, and it is ready to go once it gets good and tight. But let me show you what happens here. When they send you the box and everything, they even include, they've got this tape measure that's on the side of the box here. And so you can kind of get a quick estimate. All right, I'm about 9 inches off the ground there. And I'll come over here and I'll say, hey, I did pretty good guessing on that, right? You can adjust that to the right size. And you want this coming out at about a 45-degree angle. Tighten that up. And then here's the adjustment part I was talking about. We go bring that out. Okay, that seems to be about right. Okay, so now let's make a tent, shall we? Here's what we got, these fiberglass rods. Now this is the part that I get a little nervous about because like we're kind of getting some fiberglass catapults designed here. You're going to put that in there. You've got this little clip that ties everything together at the top. Going to put that in there. This one goes here. And then I'm still down. Connect into that one. All right. I always think it's going to try to fly away on me at this point, but I think we're okay. Get me connected there. We need some music is what we need for the assembling of this, some tunes. All right, last one. And this is going to build the frame, and then they have the actual tent itself right here, and you just set it on top of it like so. Now I'm not going to bother to do with this and all, but they have these straps as well, and these straps, well, I'll just go ahead and put this one on. It goes all the way around like this, and that's what kind of really secures it down and kind of shows you. And just for product demonstration, let me get their name where you can see it on there a little bit. Here's the front of it. You did see that clear apron over here on the side, so you can get to the controls if you need to see what's happening on this side of things. But I did want to make sure we see that. Gen Tent is the name of the company. So look, you make a tent for your generator, and it protects it from the weather. It's fantastic. Spoiler alert, I'm going to give this a Cat 5 out of 5 on my Hurricane Kit priority scale. The price of these are going to vary depending on the type of generator you have. They have a database of over 3,000 generators, and you just go in there and tell it what generator you have, and then they spit out the one that you need, and they have some options. I believe that this clear panel is actually an option that you can purchase. I think the standard one is not clear. And this generator is a tri-fuel, so you can run on different fuels. But assuming you have a gasoline engine, you can then access the gas tank with this Velcro pouch right here, so you don't have to remove the whole thing to get to the refilling of the gas. So you're able to kind of do it that way. So remember, I do my hurricane gear test. Not that I'm trying to tell you to buy or not buy this product. I want you to get you thinking about how to make your preparations for hurricane season. So if you have a generator, you have to make sure you can run it safely. You have to make sure that you have a device or you DIY your own type of setup. I've heard people that have taken old dog houses and like put the generator in an old dog house to help protect it. That's great as long as it's away from the house. There's different things you can do. I want you thinking about that. This product, again, is an option for that. I obviously like it by giving it a Cat 5. It's going to cost you some money, but overall, this is something I want you to think about. How can I run my generator safely so that I can make it a life-saving device for sure. All right, that's going to do it for right now. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with another look at the weather.